Spy Family is a wonderful story for so many reasons, from its characters to its heartwarming messages and plot to its incredible and shockingly realistic setting and historically accurate world building. But one reason that I've not heard highlighted enough is the story's pacing. It is a combination of painfully slow and ridiculously wildly fast moments capturing the true nature of both spy work and family life. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And alright, this video is the last one in our mini-series on why Spy Family is such an incredible story, and it comes just in time for us to get excited for the anime's second season. There's so much stuff coming up that I'm just sure is going to be absolutely incredible to the anime onlys in this upcoming season. It's going to be awesome! But for now, let's dive into the meat of the matter. Every good writer understands that there is one very critical element to storytelling, and that is pacing. An action story should never get too plodding. A horror story should move slowly to build up the horror and the terror that we expect throughout the story. A romance must thread the needle by moving at a believable speed to communicate relationship progress while not forcing things. Now, that's talking big picture. But what about individual chapters and moments within a story? How long should a conversation go on? Is a fight too fast or too slow? How long should you draw out an intimate scene? How long should you build up a joke? Just as every good writer understands that pacing is critical, they also know that it is absurdly hard to say anything general about pacing because it will vary from story to story and from scene to scene, depending on what you're trying to communicate. So let's speak generally at first for Spy Family and then get into some of the gritty details. Spy Family juggles the clandestine lives of spies, assassins, and hidden telepaths with the reality of having a family. And I personally know a number of people in the world of military and international intelligence who have all told me this one thing when it comes to the life of spies and espionage, and that is, it is largely boring. Yes, there are epic missions and crises that must be resolved without plunging the world into war. However, those don't just happen every day, and when they do occur, it is the result of a lot of work and possibly even more paperwork. Likewise, living with a spouse and kids is an adventure every day, but those moments and personal journeys are framed by a boring rut of daily norms. And we see all of this play out in Spy Family. Yes, Lloyd, or Agent Twilight, does have a lot of smaller missions that he goes on, but the story goes out of its way to impress that they are the result of a lot of work done not only by himself, but by plenty of other agents on the side. Twilight is the man, though, to implement the big plans that are then pushed into motion by Wise. However, Operation Strix requires him to not go in guns blazing, but to raise Anya to be an exemplary student, to infiltrate a hospital, make connections within the Ostanian government, and have a good relationship with Yor, and of course fool the neighbors and everything else that comes with just being a good family man. This requires a daily grind of work. There is no easy, quick path to confront Desmond and foil the upcoming war between Ostania and Westalis. This means that Operation Strix throughout Spy Family is moving at a glacial pace. This is of course broken up with all the other missions and crises throughout the stories, along with Anya and Yor's adventures, but overall, the whole story, to prevent a war, is moving at a very slow pace. This is all complemented by a focus on the Forger family, a slow burn focus at that. We have entire arcs about Anya just struggling in school and trying to make friends. We have entire arcs about Yor trying to be a good wife and mother. And even arcs about Lloyd struggling to keep everything together as just a simple husband and father. This is the realistic grind of raising and living within a family. A rut of work that you can't escape if you want a healthy and happy family life. The general pacing, therefore, makes Spy Family even more relatable and realistic because it takes its time to pull us into the lives of the Forgers, which helps us fall in love with them and root for them at each and every one of their endeavors. Despite all of the different adventures within the story, Spy Family therefore has not lost its plot because the pacing allows for all these smaller plot lines and excursions to fully ground us in the world of Spy Family and its characters and their motivations and how it all ties together back into Operation Strix. Without the snail pacing that we get within the overall story, we could never have gotten some of the manga's and anime's best moments without them feeling maybe a little bit rushed or shoehorned in. Now, the fun begins with the paradoxical way that the whole story doesn't feel slow at all, because the individual moments within Spy Family are perfectly paced to speed things up and slow them down to give us breathing room, and also to appreciate how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Let's have a look at some examples. For instance, the student bombings at the beginning of the second core of Season 1. This is an absolutely incredible moment right here. Things have been going kind of slow for the Forger family. We've had some time to get to know them. We've had plenty of humor, and hey, Anya just won her first Stella Star. This is really great. She's going to get a doggy. Things are going really well, and then suddenly everything goes to hell in a handbasket as students try to initiate a revolution and a war via assassinations and bombings within the capital of Berlin. So things are suddenly cranked up to 11. And in a way that, as I've pointed out in a previous video, actually has a lot of historical backing. It makes a whole lot of sense with various groups like the Student Uprising in the Czech Republic, and then also with the Baader-Meinhof-Gruppe doing all kinds of terrorist things in West Germany. There is precedent for this stuff. And so the Forger family is thrown into this absolutely chaotic event, and they escape by the skin of their teeth, thanks to Bond's precognizance, which Anya is able to read by reading his mind, and then Anya doing some really heroic stuff to help out her father, Twilight, or Lloyd, really being able to pick up on clues, and then of course Yor just being absolute best girl in her own way, and all of their different deeds coming together at the right time and the right place to pull out a victory. But it's not just the excitement of what's going on right here, it's also the brilliant falling action, the resolution in how Bond is then adopted into the family, and we're able to slide really realistically back into just the good fluffiness of getting to know the Forger family, and with an introduction of a new family member, being their dog. Another great moment that actually brings a lot of action to the scene, but doesn't necessarily further the plot that much, is Agent Midnight's introduction. She is actually a very important character overall, and actually helps to deepen the world building of Spy Family, is there to provide a lot of comedic moments, as well as be a foil to Yor, and provide just a little bit more backstory to Lloyd. So there's a lot that she represents. She's not just some throwaway character who's thrown in there for gags and for awkward romance situations. Like, she is a very important character, and so her introduction is actually very complimentary to who she is, with how dark things get, how fast things can be, how ridiculous they can get when she's around. We get a very good, firmly established rivalry between her and Yor. But when we think about it, going on this separate operation to go steal a dossier which has been hidden in some artwork and all this other stuff, it doesn't really further the plot along, the plot being Operation Strix. However, taking this time to have just a fun romp in the world of spies tells us a lot about these two agents, Agent Midnight and Agent Twilight. It also helps us to better understand the complexities of this world, and to know it's not just as simple as WISE versus the SSS, but that there are all these other parties and agencies involved, and it also winks at some of the darker history that Anya is connected to. And that's one of the things that actually helps make the slower pacing within a story actually worth it. if on some of these side excursions, you make sure that they are relevant to the main characters or to the main plot in some kind of way. And that's one of the things that makes pacing kind of an interesting topic, because it doesn't actually matter so much as how slow or how fast something is going, so long as the speed is relevant to telling the story the right way. You can have very slow battle scenes, and they can be absolutely gripping, whereas other battle scenes need to be very fast. It is all determined by what kind of story you're trying to communicate. And Spy Family is a very deep story about the worlds of spies, assassins, hidden telepaths trying to be a family in a very dark world on the brink of war. Another great moment is Anya's dodgeball game. And this is again just a moment that really slows down the overall story. Yes, Anya thinks that she's going to win a Stella Star if she wins a dodgeball game, which is, as is pointed out at the end, is just really ridiculous. That would never actually happen. But it's something that is important to Anya. And so because it's important to this character, the story slows down to give her a chance to have fun. However, when we think about the entire mini arc of playing dodgeball, it actually moves really fast. We get our training montage with Anya and Yor, and it's absolutely great and lovely and all that good jazz. And the game itself actually goes by really fast. It's something that doesn't feel like it actually eats up a whole lot of time because these individual moments are handled in just a very fun way. There's no overabundance of fluff. There's no overabundance of training. The game doesn't go on for too long. The story is slowed down for us to enjoy this moment, but it's like having a full fleshed out chapter that tells you everything. And this is something important to know when it comes to pacing. Every individual chapter of a story must tell a mini story within it. It has its beginning, middle, and end. Sure, it can all lead into something else. It doesn't necessarily have to be conclusive by the time that you put the last punctuation mark for that particular chapter. However, you still need to tell a confined story within a chapter. And that's something that actually helps you out with the pacing. Because if you realize then, wow, I've written 10,000 words for this chapter, you've probably gone on too long. And now, my last example right here, which is kind of an interesting one to compare actually to Anya's dodgeball game, is Yor's protection mission, which we are going to be getting in Season 2. This is where Yor has to protect the last remaining family members of this great crime syndicate that have been deemed essential for the stability of Ostania. Working for the gardener, Yor has to do all kinds of interesting jobs. Jobs that involve not just simply assassinations, but various kinds of work for the Black Ops side of her country. And these chapters, this is a huge arc actually within the overall manga, because we get so much about Yor. She goes through quite a bit of character development. We get to see a lot more of her world, and on top of that, you then have the Forger family going on vacation, and oh boy, there's so many things happening in this particular arc. There's so much I could talk about, but I don't want to give spoilers out there, too many spoilers out there for the anime onlys who might be watching this video. But let's just say that this one's very interesting, where as opposed to Anya's dodgeball arc, which is all self-contained, Yor's adventure right here eats up tons of chapters, which all flow together in a nice, concise way, with each chapter telling us a separate part of this adventure, slowly giving us greater access to Yor's frame of mind, where she comes from as a character and where she's going as the wife and mother in the Forger family. And again, this is a moment that doesn't necessarily serve the greater whole of Operation Strix, but this is such an incredible arc, and it is so needed for yours character development that, again, the pacing for the overall story is slowed down to give an incredible moment to one of the main characters. And when you're reading through this in the manga, and I especially expect within the anime, it's going to fly by fast, it's going to be wild, it's going to be crazy. And this is again why pacing is just so strange, it's so weird, because you can have these faster moments within a really slow story. As we can see from this analysis and comparison of smaller events to the overall plot of Spy Family, pacing is key, and it's also hard to pin down as just one thing that must be done to make a story succeed, because there is no one right speed. For Anya's dodgeball game, that only requires one chapter, only requires one episode. For yours particular arc, that requires multiple chapters, and it's going to require multiple episodes to do it right. And yet, it still slows down the overall pacing of the main story, which is to prevent war between Ostania and Westalis. And this is something that Spy Family absolutely excels at, being able to balance these larger and smaller moments, these faster and slower moments together to not only elevate the comedy and the world building and everything like that, but to tell us most critically, most importantly, about the characters within this world, their motivations, what part do they play in it, as everything slowly unfolds. And again, that slow speed helps to really ground us within the world of spies and within the world of family. Ultimately, what I'm trying to get at right here is that pacing is hard. As a writer, you must understand the overall speed for your story, as well as what speed each scene should go at. They all need to complement each other. Otherwise, there will just be moments that drag on for far too long or go way too fast for what is actually happening. And at worst, it might even just make your readers question why on earth you even have these chapters or scenes in there if they don't feel necessary or overly indulgent. And so you must learn through constant practice and feedback how to refine your story's overall pacing. And that's the best advice that I can give. The second best bit of pacing advice I can give is to read and watch stories that are in the same genre and vein as what you are writing. This will give you an idea of what works and what doesn't fit for your tale. Now, that's my writing advice, and I highly encourage everyone to go and read the manga for Spy Family and get an even better sense for how good the story's pacing is, because you'll get to see how everything comes together far better than I would argue even within the anime, because you can really see how things are spread out. And you can then also join in the feelings of pain as each one of us who reads the manga has to wait at least 2 weeks for updates and go through that frustration with us and then realize what genius you've just read through once an arc is concluded. Anyway, that will do it for this mini-series on Spy Family. Of course, if you'd like me to cover the story in more detail when the anime starts up again, we can definitely make that work. Just let us know in the comments. And in the meantime, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here on our channel. You can also head on over to our podcast for more writing insights from the whole harem. And we would really appreciate it if you helped us out by liking, commenting on this video, and sharing it out. But an even greater thing to do would be checking out and reading the books that we've published. Links for them and more are in the description below. But otherwise, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and until the next adventure with the Forger family, tschüss.